to this topic today, emotional health, and it feels like sometimes emotions can be erratic as the British weather, and which we get predictions, but it doesn't quite often fulfill the expectations. And I think our emotional map of the day might look a bit similar at times. And it's interesting. It's an interesting time because we're getting a lot more in the news about mental health and emotional health. They're two different things, but they have some overlap. And one thing they're saying, it's okay not to be okay. So that's one aspect. Are we going to, can we all learn to have this inner peace and state of mind with all of this change that is happening? So some emotional health might be more like survival kit, but for others, you might be here to learn how to support your loved ones. It might be that you're thinking of your children or your friends. And there are so many self-help books now, but it's sometimes difficult to know what can I put into practice, and what is the most important thing. We also have social media, we have tools which in some ways connect us, in some ways alienate us, and sometimes help emotional health, sometimes they maybe deplete us. So it's a good time to use the resources and see what can help me personally to be strong internally. They say emotional health involves your ability to manage and express the emotions that arise. But we don't all react in the same way. One quote, "The mind in its own place and in itself can make heaven of hell and hell of heaven." And situation may be the same, but two people can make it into their own nightmare. Someone else can see an opportunity. So how we react, see if we can learn. And today we're going to invite Dr. Prashant, connecting today from Cambridge, and has been experimenting with meditation and philosophy of Raj Yoga for more than 30 years. So it would be lovely to hear your perspective on this topic. So again, welcome everyone, especially if you've just joined. We look forward to your comments and sharing in the chat. And yeah, over to Prashant.
Thank you, Sarah, and very clear some insights in the subject of emotions and emotional health. This is such an important subject for every human being. You know, and I would imagine even animals. We all are trying to experience something. And the big difference between artificial intelligence and robots, and they are working on an area where they can refine these computers and to do amazing things. But what they cannot get them to experience are emotions. You know, emotion is a very, very clear domain of the human being or in a human animal kingdom. You know, at this stage, I would like to limit it at this level. You know, matter cannot experience emotions. At least we can't know what matter is experiencing, or if there is an experience at all. You know, the definition of matter is something that do not experience. But here, emotions, and we are trying to get a higher range, if we can call it, higher range of emotions. That's what we want. And we are striving for it so intensely that we can find ourselves in trouble. Just like a fish may get excitement, happiness with a bait for 5 seconds and find itself in trouble. Yet in the same way here, we can be going for short-term happiness, short-term experience of love or some excitement, and create a long-term problem. And this is the only cause why human beings find themselves in a emotional muddle. Whole mental health problems, and they are tied with emotions. Emotions of sorrow of different kinds, of disturbance. Broadly, this can be described under few categories. This is a area of unpleasant emotions that we don't like. We want to be free from these emotions, and if we are free from those, what naturally remains is something very pleasant. As an example, if there is no fear in me, there is peace. If there is no anger, if those negative emotions are not there, resting state is positive. This is with every human being, animal, and we just need to be free from this. And these areas, we said, there's few categories that sort of shows us the seed of the negative emotion. I will be using the whiteboard, and so on your device you will see a board coming up, and you may be able to adjust and make it bigger or smaller. And one mental state, if we can call it a beggar, desire of some kind, constantly wanting something. It can be begging for love, begging for something, maybe just preference. Things should be slightly different. That is also begging for justice, begging, whole range of begging. That is one department. Another mindset is a victim mindset. Potential victim. Someone may be able to harm me. Something may harm me, not necessarily a human being. Something can go wrong, and I am the possible victim. Or something has gone wrong in the past. I am a victim. And third mindset is a slave, where you are subservient, dependent on something. If someone does something, then I'll be happy. If he does something wrong, I'm unhappy. This is the slave mindset. So these are the lowest denominations in any society. Beggar, victim, slave. And we have the option to adopt these mindsets, get into the thinking, the attitude of a beggar, attitude of a victim, attitude of a slave. And I won't be wrong to say that 99.99%, I'm really meaning 100%, but I don't want to use that, but large majority of the world is having all these three all the time. It is not occasionally. This is like a resting phase of everyone. Maybe some are at a very deep end of the victim and, constantly, blaming everyone. Some maybe at a deep end of beggar, but everyone, kings and the subjects, all are with these three mindsets. How did we get here? One nice way to see this is if I see our world, like to see showed our entire physical world by this image. It is a limited world, physical world. It has limitations. It is unpredictable. And within this world, we give birth to an ego. We define ourselves based on things within this world. It is like an extraordinary achievement of human being. You give birth to an ego and you define yourselves. And their whole life journey and their idea of success is to make this ego bigger. For example, someone may define himself based on the job, and then he wants to get a bigger promotion and bigger title, bigger hat, and more feathers so that the ego can get bigger and bigger and bigger. This is his idea of success. At least that is the idea of success of that ego. Ego means it is ruling the one's life. That's why that becomes the notion of success. And there are many ego we create, not just one. Ego based on body, ego based on relations, ego based on dog. We can people, position, possessions. We go on creating ego. Now we are in this big trap. When we give birth to this ego, we are in this big trap. What is a trap? This ego is based on a world. You see this world here? Ego is based on a world that is insecure. That world itself is unpredictable. It comes with a upfront label. It is going to go. Everything on which the ego is based, it is going to go. That job is not permanent. That dog is not permanent. Because people based on whom I have created ego, they are not permanent. And so this ego forever feels he's a victim. Things can change. Change bothers him and bothers him. So he feels he is going to go. So whole life he is fighting to survive. And victim has got one personality. Victim will constantly look for dangers. One who is in the victim mentality, he ignores all 10 good things and will pick up one wrong thing, negative thing. Say here, we got a little, what we used to have a little pond, a puddle of water, and birds used to come to get some few drops of water. Some small birds, they spend half a minute checking left and right and turn the head up and down all around to see if there is any cat nearby before they take one drop. And it is extraordinary how this mind works. And the same is the life of the ego. It will constantly be looking around if there are any possible dangers, if anyone criticizing him. He ignores all the 100 good things that are going on and keep thinking about one wrong thing that has happened. His focus is there. That victim mentality, he goes, looks for dangers, and as a result, he ends up being negative. Mind is thinking about negative and it feels negative, because if you are thinking of all the wrong things, there's so many things can go wrong. And for the ego, things do go wrong because ego is going to end one day. So he thinks everything is going wrong. If that particular ego was not there, he feels nothing is wrong, nothing can go wrong. Of course, things are going to change and things are going to end, but he doesn't see anything is wrong. Whereas for the ego, definition of ego, this is wrong, this and that is wrong. What about tomorrow? Today things, what about tomorrow? So bigger the ego, bigger are the problems, negative. So when one is in this state, he can go into sad, bad, mad. Ego personality is sad, bad, mad. Because once you are in this victim mode, you you have to prevent the problems, all these dangers, and you have to become bad in the process, and so his mind is working like this. So the typical example of this is look at all the dictators in history, see their lifeline, and there is misery. As you go further, there is misery. All that happens, dictators is a typical situation where ego gets a chance to get bigger very quickly. And bigger the ego, more miserable they are. They feel victims. And when they are victims, they can go to very ridiculous levels to harm others, and they feel they themselves are harmed. They see themselves as victims. This is dictators. I am not creating ego based on the power and position, but I can be creating ego based on my shoes, and I will feel the same. It is not that I am very holy person. If ego is created, ego will behave the same way, feel the same way. Emotions will go in that direction. Feel free to type your comments, questions.
Yeah, we have a question. Is it a good time now?
Yes.
Actually, a couple of questions. So thank you for this introduction, and what also just wanted to highlight. You said we want to be free from the lower emotions, and that you said it's created by short-term happiness, like the happiness of a bait, and that's why we find ourselves in an emotional muddle. And that it's almost like you're saying there's a root, and our resting state is positive, and that now it seems you're identifying the lower state, and that this is what we want to get rid of, the emotions that are coming from ego. This is what I've understood. Now the question here, when we hold negative emotions against other people, maybe in order to, it's like from our ego, maybe to protect our ego, to justify itself. This is like a victim part, as you explained. How can we handle this? I hope I got the question right. I was trying to get the essence.
Yes, we're very, very clear and good question. Thank you. In our game here, what we are going to suggest, when anyone is playing this ego-based game, you never win. As we saw, all the people in the world, they are trying to feed the ego to make it secure. They want to give the ego what they want and give a bigger head. The ego gets bigger and the problems get bigger. So you never win by feeding the ego. So the wisest thing to do is remove the ego. So if I somehow remove the ego, it doesn't mean I remove the position. Position still remains. But just that I have not created ego based on the position. Like you might find there are many people. I often give the example. Say the queen of this country comes to Histon. Histon is our village just outside Cambridge. And Rotary Club of Histon makes her honorary president of the Rotary Club. And this is like a bit of a, Histon is a very little village, so no one would think a lot about this. So that's why I'm giving this example. So the Rotary Club of Histon makes her honorary president. She might accept the position, president of Rotary Club, but she will not think second time about this. She goes on with her life, she will not tell others, I am the Rotary Club president, of Histon. Whereas another person in the village, he becomes the president of the Rotary Club, he will be quite pleased about this. He will think about this. He might create an ego about it. Even when he is not the Rotary Club president, he will tell that last year I was the president of Rotary Club. Because for him it is important. Just position doesn't mean you end up creating ego. How come the queen was not able to create ego? Because she has self-respect at another level. And that's why this did not create ego. Same happens with us, and spiritual message is this: go to higher level. Go higher in a real sense. Don't stay in that box. In that box, it will take you lower. More we get caught into these attachments, you are in this downward spiral. So our job is to go higher. How? So let us see the same word. It is useful to see this image, big map. If we see the big map here, everything, you understand the shortcuts. If you are seeing a map of the town, country, then you know which is the shortest way to get there. So here we are seeing the big map. And once we see the big map, let us see the perspective from beyond this box. Ego just means perspective from inside. I is based upon things of this world. We have the option to grasp the perspective from outside. How? Is it possible for us to have the perspective from outside? Okay, in theory it is nice. Can you give an example? You can type. If you give an example, you will get a prize.
Might need to give a few moments for the response, but for anyone who's not clear, you're saying the box represents the physical world. Is that right?
Physical world, yeah, entire physical. What we see, touch, this physical world is represented here.
So you could say how to be objective of it. How
How
to be objective.
grasp the perspective from beyond.
Mm-hmm.
This I from within the box. That's what there is ego. Perspective from outside.
That's quite a difficult question.
Difficult. Yeah. Okay, the nice word I'm looking for is the word guest. A guest may be in your house. He's in the house. He's sitting on the chair. He's using everything in the house. But he is not part of the household. His perspective is from outside the household. Different perspective. Very interesting dynamics. A tourist in your town, he has an objective perspective. He's in the town, but his perspective is from outside. So also we have the option, even for 1 minute, to grasp the perspective from outside. And for this, grasp this perspective of a guest. Guest visiting this world. And guest has the exit. And it is nice for him to be here. Very good, everything is nice, but thank you very much. Like if a guest is in your house and someone says, oh, I don't like this carpet, I don't like this table, this shape is wrong and this color is wrong. Guest doesn't take anything personally. Guest is never a victim. And when you are in that insecure mode, there are these desires come, the beggars starts. So ego is also a beggar. Ego is a victim mentality. Ego is also beggar. Ego is also slave. There's all the emotions of the slave and the beggar. They are all very much. Ego is an embodiment of this. You come in this guest and you suddenly discover that you are out of this. He's carefree. Or just opposite, very funny dynamics. Guest may be, a person may be going to some country. Local people may be complaining about things. But the guest, he feels, oh, the tree is nice and the rock is nice. He takes photographs. He takes photographs of everything that is going on. He comes back. The perspective of a guest, he finds every moment is nice. The big secret here for the highest positive emotion, the big secret, it is possible for us to play with it for even 1 minute. Zero desires. In other words, zero begging. Need nothing there. And person feels he's never a victim. If somehow you can grasp this, that you can never be a victim and not dependent on anything, not a slave. Just you need to stop this beggar, victim, and slave for 1 minute. And the perspective of a guest, you get it all straight away. So one who sees himself as a guest, he finds he is in the world very much, involved with everything, but nothing can harm him. He himself has an exit. Everything around him may go, but he is okay. It doesn't feel he has some preference on this. He finds green is nice and red is nice, and silence is nice. He's okay. He's a tourist. He's appreciating all the experiences. Someone is beating drums. He says, okay, and then they play drums differently here. He's a guest. He's a tourist. One who is in that mindset, for them, every moment appears like a gift. There's appreciation, there's gratitude, the different mind it takes over when one is in the guest perspective. But most interesting, there is zero negative feelings in a guest. What would normally create these negative feelings of the victim and feelings of the beggar, he's going to come out of this guest. Whole thing is going to be left behind, and still guest feels okay about it. So we have the option to see ourselves as a guest on this planet, guest in this physical world, guest in this body. We can play with this for 1 minute. For this, use this expression, invisible guest. Because everything that is visible is going to be left behind. So the guest is invisible. Invisible guest is passing through this amazing, grand physical world. It is a nice world, but thank you very much. I got to exit. That's the perspective. At this stage, we are introducing this, something for us to experiment with. A subject is emotional freedom. If we want that, this is an absolute answer to play with it. as time progresses, if you want to explore further, you will understand it is not just a nice method, there is much more reality and truth behind this, what we play with. In other words, in our ordinary mindset, when we are into this victim mind and ego, we are leading an abnormal life. That is a wrong posture. What we are doing here is really trying to get a right posture, correct posture inside. It will be nice to hear some thoughts from you, and we'll also create some time for some experience.
Thank you very much. For some reason, what comes to mind is the get out of jail free card in Monopoly. It's like ego, you feel like a prison to your own emotions, and almost within that feels very complicated. You think it will take a while to solve and you have to, but this, it's like a get out of jail free, you're out of the whole thing. And I particularly liked what you said, feelings change straight away. And I think, I don't know about you, it's like the feelings were changing just hearing about it. So this invitation to experiment, even if it's for a minute, it definitely brings in a fresh angle. So it's very interesting. And a comment here, sounds like the contrast between the process and experience is like the product and the destination. Not sure if I understood, but if Ben wants to expand on that. And another comment, it seems very simple, and so anyone can try this, which is good, because it needs to be simple. I think when we're experiencing the different emotions, we can come back to this simple principle. There was another question a little earlier. How do we deal with things that come up in our lives, personal difficulties? And for those who believe in karma, they may feel it's like a karmic return, for example, but life situations. How do we best cope with these challenges without entering the victim mode?
Sure. It is more like whole karma means I sit in a wrong posture. It invites pain, wrong posture. I change the posture, and then there is no pain. So all that we are doing here is changing the posture. The ego posture, inner posture, was a wrong posture, and it brings pain. I change the posture. Situations will come, as we said, at the box, it is unpredictable, and death and destruction is the law there. That is, if you see around, everything is changing, and that is the nature. But one who is the invisible guest is also the invisible observer, and he finds his observer, just like I'm observing the cloud, and cloud suddenly disappears, and there's clear sky. I find that is also nice. It doesn't disturb me, because I am the observer. I'm not trapped in it. I'm not created the ego based on anything. Same happens with the invisible guest. Things change for whatever reason, karmic reasons or any other reason. Things end, but he has changed the posture, and he finds it amusing. He experiences that freedom. And as was said before, when the mind has zero drop of poison, when there is nothing unpleasant, that mind knows peace of the soul. That mind experiences that whole positive spectrum. He finds fun, just like a tourist. He finds mind, it feels fun. And he wants to take photograph, everything appears great for him. Same here. One who is in that mind of the invisible guest, invisible. And so he is absolutely beyond harm. Nothing can harm him. And he has zero desires. He needs nothing for his survival. So he knows no one can deprive him of anything, no one can harm him. That's all. During this minute, you are playing with this. And then you find silence is fun, and the noise is fun, and that green tree is nice, and no tree is nice, and people jumping, that is great, and some dragon is also great, because he feels nothing can harm him. In our ordinary mind, we feel our dragon, we will not see it as fun because he can harm me. This is our immediate reaction. Ego feels just, the ego doesn't need a dragon, just someone may criticize his hat, and that itself is a big problem for the ego. So ego approaches everything with his glasses, looking for dangers. And that drop of poison comes in. We have the option, just as a fun, even here, it is a fun, to play with this, where you are seeing the perspective of a guest for 1 minute, invisible guest, and one who is beyond harm. Nothing of this can harm him. This entire physical world may disappear. It cannot harm this invisible guest. And he needs nothing. He is not a beggar. He is not a victim. He is not a slave. We have the option to play with it for 1 minute. And you will find during this minute, you are experiencing a whole range of other emotions. And you are experiencing freedom from the ordinary emotions. It is not just temporary change. It is, of course, temporary, but deeper shift will also happen. That is the way to bring about this deeper change. In our psychology and personality, some people may have some trauma and there's some scars, past things. How do you remove them? And bring in these higher emotions. We are in the same world, same towns, same people are around, but the perspective is higher. You are going higher, and as you go higher, you are seeing things differently. If I am to summarize, I want to remember one's essence of this hour. The 3 words to remember: higher, beyond, above. We want to grasp that perspective. That is higher, beyond, above. This entire physical. Yes, sorry, Sarah, want to add something?
Yeah, thank you. It's good to have essence. We have a couple of questions here. So yes, the comment here is it's understood and it's been put into daily life, and about being a guest, not attaching oneself to the dramas, the details. But sometimes the feeling that we may go through life without care about anything because one is invisible traveler, so that doesn't feel quite right, and that can feel a bit confusing.
Sure.
To have that too. Would you be able to comment on that?
Yeah, sure. Actually, what happens when we are in the victim mind, we become helplessly selfish. We might think we are helping others or something, but we won't be helping everyone. We are helping just someone because he might remove my problems. So we think we are kind, but there is some calculation going on there. Helpless when we are insecure, when we are in the victim, we feel we are victim, we become selfish. When you are secure, appears that he is happy, but one who is secure, he is more loving. And he will love, whether, as we said, no one is his enemy because he feels no one harms him. But he will be there if anyone needs help. Then there will be no calculation in his help. He is not thinking someone may be useful to him tomorrow. That calculation is not there. So it becomes so authentic intervention, but the personality is higher.
Yeah, so it feels like, because the comment is this is someone's real experience. So perhaps what you're saying is, in the process, we need to completely awaken that totally secure space to fully replace the lower, because perhaps it could even be another ego that is attempting to be freer, but actually what's happened is we haven't completely got this fresh freedom perspective.
Yeah, we have to start the process. Ordinarily, not many really practice the invisible guest perspective. They may be ordinary guest in some town, some city. That is a different, but we have to come to that invisible guest perspective totally from beyond. And then every minute you are playing with it, you are nourishing that higher consciousness. You are a winner.
Yes, in this case, the person is practicing, but it's like really going for this like consolidation of the highest consciousness. One question, are we born with ego?
No. As it was said, ego is based on external things. Like for example, ego is created based on the job. So I did not bring the job with me. It was over here. And in time, we give birth to the ego. And as was said, most of the life, we are busy in nourishing it, making it bigger.
Nice.
There are, of course, some tendencies will go with us. The ego, we create tendencies towards ego, they go with us in different, or wherever our journey is. And we might have brought things with us in our journey, tendencies. But that is another subject beyond the emotional freedom.
Yeah, and actually emotional freedom is a good title, but it's emotional health, emotional freedom. I think the freedom is definitely a word that attracted me to spirituality, wanting to be internally and emotionally free. So it's beautiful how it gets encapsulated with one word. So we can definitely take that away today. One question, is it always the case that if someone is secure or mostly insecure, that they are somehow in some way selfish, would you say?
Insecure.
If someone is insecure, does it always mean selfishness?
Yes, helplessly. Because no one can tolerate being insecure. Animal, human being, we all want to be secure. And so to become secure becomes absolute need of the individual. And the same law applies to me right now. What that happens here, coming into the awareness of the guest, you address that need. You feel secure in that guest perspective. And that's why you can be good to others. But whatever I'm meaning, that personality comes where you can, because deep inside you feel secure. You don't need some gold to feel secure, but that perspective helps. Feeling secure, it is an important thing. Just want to mention one aspect here. This aspect of feeling secure, it is absolute need. I mean, we can all relate to this. Animal, human beings, we all want to survive and feel secure. But in this equation, things go wrong when we try to make ourselves secure in this insecure world. They all are. Why do they want more gold? They want to feel secure, but they are trying to make themselves secure in this insecure world. So they find themselves more insecure as a result of their life's, mission. Whole life they have been working to get more things within that, and now they feel they can lose everything. More insecure. All that you are doing here, you are coming beyond that insecure world. Just coming beyond, you have addressed this in a deep need of feeling secure. You don't own a single atom of this world, but you feel totally secure. You have nothing to lose. You feel at most you are a trustee of things. You are still in the same life. You are still in the same world, same body. Everything is still there. But the perspective is you don't own a single atom. And you don't want to own a single atom. Don't believe that. At most you are a trustee. And as a result, you feel that richest mind that is possible. No king or emperor, one who is caught in that box, can experience that richness that the invisible guest experiences. So it is freedom from lower emotions, but it is like a disproportionate luxury.
There's also it's not battling with the lower, is it? It's like feels like it's replacing something, as you were saying, going higher. It's like an upgrade rather than a management. So we're sort of being emotional leaders for our own self, and having a vision as well, having an aim for the mind. Because I think anyone who's new to meditation or practicing, it's like noticing how to try to bring an aim to the mind is challenging, because it's a little bit left to its own accord with thinking about all sorts during the day. So having an aim to position the mind here, this posture. So if anyone has any other final comments, we're kind of coming up to time, and it would be lovely to create some space for reflection as well. But it's been very quickly, can go into a lot of depth. I had some other questions like what to do if watching the news affects our emotions. Do we avoid? It's a practical question, maybe. We have the guest, we know this, but what does it mean? Should I avoid certain people, certain situations if they trigger my emotions?
Yeah, more you come in that higher consciousness, situations will not trigger emotions. With the lower consciousness, we have to manage somehow, until we remove the ego, as we said. But once you come in the higher, we are still in the world, and if I listen to the news, no problem at all. News, or we are dealing with this world in front of us. You will see many things happening, but you are not a victim. You are not identifying with anything. So you are not a victim, you are not a beggar. You approach that situation with the nobility. And it is a noble response. You might choose not to waste your time watching the news. That is a different thing. But not because you are frightened of the results.
I can see one obstacle for some is that we identify with these lower emotions. We sort of can tell ourselves, I'm the one that gets stressed when I read the news, or, if I'm late for the train, I'm the one that's, getting into anxiety. This is, from what you're saying, it seems like we have this noble side, and that this is not just for the luxury of a few, that we have this capacity. So perhaps it's like to suspend our preconceived idea and go for this highest, and then see the effects. Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, you clarified it nicely. Just to know that within us, there is this noble side. And this 1 minute is just to give a experience, but then we have the option to nourish it. Every minute you are playing with it, it will continue to become stronger. Every habit, good or bad, starts somewhere. And so also here, this is like the seed. Seed, you are working at the consciousness itself. And every minute you are playing with it, it will become stronger. And seed means with that comes many other positive qualities, tendencies. They will follow. And they will, more they grow, the ego will continue to become weaker. So it gets replaced at a seed level. And that is something worth working for.
Thank you. And yeah, nourishing, and it's prompted lots of reflections, I think. So would you be happy to share a couple of minutes of contemplation before we close?
I'd like to tell one story. One queen, story about a queen. We should not complete without reference to the queen. So this queen was searching for a necklace, and she searched and searched everywhere, and finally found it around her neck. And this is our story. We are searching for something, we are all looking for richness of emotions, richness of heart. And now we are going to the space, and maybe many more will be joining this queue to go to space, get some emotion of some kind. But ultimately, you will find that it is there within us. You don't need to go to the space, and experience the richness that you can sustain. It is not just for few minutes, but experience that it will grow. That is more important, and stay with you in this life and beyond. So it is something nice. Excellent. So we'll create just a couple of minutes and play with this perspective. And during this minute, we really give it a full chance. We use the spiritual sight that as if gives us permission to see things differently for a few minutes. We see this physical world for what it is. For us, it is temporary world, sure. For everyone, it is a temporary experience. This is not a world we can stay permanently, so that's why it is obvious. And with this sight, we can see the invisible guest visiting this world. Invisible guest knows that he doesn't own a single atom there, and he can't lose an atom. Got nothing to lose. Guest doesn't own anyone. He knows that he cannot lose anyone. So he's not a victim, can never be a victim, can never be a beggar. He knows the starting position. Invisible guest. He's very clear of his exit. Every guest has a return journey. He knows of this. So he has no intention to cling to anything here. He has no intention to cling to anything or to claim anything. Invisible guest. And now as a guest, he finds every moment is a gift. And every experience is a gift. Invisible guest is happy to be there, happy to come, happy to leave. He finds this body is a gift at this moment. He doesn't claim anything. He has higher sense of appreciation. Guest always brings that freshness. His guest sees everything with newness. There is more appreciation, more gratitude. As we continue on our journey, we remind ourselves this beautiful truth of the invisible guest, our truth. Thank you.
Thank you, and really consolidating this as a reflection for all of us to consider, and would be great if you wanted to be in touch within a space, share any comments or thoughts or questions, and we can also pick them up next week. The topic is habits for happiness. So thank you for joining today. We'll put the link for how to connect to the ongoing talks. And I think there is a lot of depth, and if you want to investigate further, then you can also join our weekly courses. So stay in touch. Thanks everyone for joining. Thanks to Prashant. I see you next time.